Okay. Mangala Charan, anyone else apart from Anuj Prabhu would like to share or like to recite the Mangala Charan today?
I can go, Prabhuji.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Should I start?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Om Ajnana-Timrandansya Jnananjanan-Shalakaya Chakshurunmanthan Yen Tasmai Shri Guruvai Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Kadamaha Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavascha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sabdet Savadutam Parijan Sahitam कृष्ण चैतन्य देवम श्री राधा कृष्ण पदाम सहगना ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितम च हे कृष्ण कृपा सन्दो दीन बंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपीकांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते चटकांचांगा गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पद्रुम कृपा सिंधु एव च पतिनानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवभ्यो नमो नमः श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधारा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम 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 हरे ओम नमः भगवते वासुदेवाय नमः ओम नमः भगवते वासुदेवाय नमः ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नमः नरा नरानां नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरते नास्त परेशवा अवधिरेषु नित्यं भगवत सेवाया भगवते उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर भवती नैश्चिकी.
Thank you very much, Deepa Mataji. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Right. So next week, Shalini Mataji will be your turn. Okay. By the way, there's no class next week. We are traveling. I will not be in Singapore. So no class next week. We will be meeting in 2 weeks' time. So thank you very much, Deepa Mataji. Very nice to hear. Everyone is taking interest in reciting this Mangala Charan because it opens up our heart to receiving the mercy of Krishna, right? Many a times we go to the sadhus and we tell them, please, bless us, please give us the mercy, etc. But the question is, the mercy is like the sun, just emanating from the body of Krishna, just emanating from the sadhus, right? They are all out to give the mercy. But are we sufficient enough as receptacles to receive the mercy, right? What are we doing to receive the mercy? That's most important. And one way is having this clear intention of sometimes learning to recite these verses in full humility, right? So thank you very much, Anuj Prabhu. Thank you very much, Deepa Mataji. I hope the rest of us will take, take the lead in the future classes. So today we will go a little bit into, you'll realize in the last few lessons, last few classes, we have been speaking a little bit about how do we bring spirituality into the real world, into the corporate world, etc. Right? Of course, the spiritual world is the real world. The material world is not the real world, right? We know all of this. But how do we make these spiritual axioms, these spiritual frameworks relatable in the corporate world, in our family lives, etc. So as I mentioned earlier on, anxiety is a big thing today. Everyone is speaking about stress, right? The work which was done by 5 people is now done by 1 person, right? And then, with AI coming in, people are like unsure what is going to be their role, right? Can everything be done by robots? Can everything be done by machine? Or do we still require humans like us to make the necessary judgments Or can algorithms be sufficient for judgments, right? So there's so much of anxiety in everyone's mind today, right? So stress is really a short-term, short-term paradigm, and it's normally in response to a recognized threat. But anxiety is when stress just keeps on lingering and it reaches a certain stage where we are not even sure why are we in such a state? Why are we so stressed? What is actually happening? Right? So anxiety is a fear, is a feeling of fear, dread, and uneasiness that can be a normal reaction to stress. And it can be characterized by physical changes like increased blood pressure, worried thoughts, and it can be mild or severe, and it can be in response to life events like taking an exam, speaking in front of a crowd, sometimes even making an important decision. It just keeps on lingering in your mind, right? If it lingers, it becomes uncomfortable and it interferes with our daily activities like our job, our school work, sometimes even relationships. Sometimes we don't even want to speak to our spouses, our kids, because we have got so much going on in our mind, right? And then when this happens, it is actually an anxiety disorder. So some of the causes could be social and environmental factors. Like for example, during the pandemic, there was so much of social isolation. We were not meeting people. We couldn't even meet some of our own relatives, right? So because of social isolation, sometimes this could also be because of childhood trauma, or some negative life events, maybe someone leaving our family, etc. It could be societal pressures because society expect us to behave in a certain manner. It could be abuse, or it could be domestic violence, or it can also be lack of access to mental health resources, right? So those can be classified as social and environmental factors. Then another cause of anxiety could be psychological factors, right? It could be the personality of a person. It could be history of anxiety, right? Or, it could be mental disorders in some biological relatives, which is also somehow affecting us in a big way. Right? And the third classification could be biological factors like physical or mental health problems, living with a serious, ongoing, or life-threatening physical health condition, sometimes even inflammation in our bodies, allergies, all of this can actually drive us, right, in an anxiety mode. And, physical factors include resilience to stress. I have a hard time dealing with stressful situation, right? And sometimes we are born with certain traits, right? So those could be classified as biological factors. So in today's presentation, today's discussion, these three broad classifications are out of context. All right. If one is going through a social or environmental factored anxiety, or anxiety due to psychological factors or biological factors, it's best that this person seeks professional help. Okay. That's very, very important. So then what comes under our domain, right? Sometimes we go and see a spiritualist thinking that the person can actually solve all of our problems. It's important to understand that sometimes we get into this spiritual bypass paradigm, all right? Thinking that everything can be solved by just seeking spiritual health. No, spiritual coaching. No, we need to actually take responsibility of not just bypassing it using a spiritual context. No, we need to actually sit down and try to see how we can solve this, right? So many a times, when someone is new in this spirituality, they always feel that, oh, everything can be solved by by getting into spirituality. Yes, at the same time, we need to take responsibility. All right. We need to take responsibility and not just bypass this. This spiritual bypass is it's a new framework which was just brought about 20 years ago, right? Even in the Hare Krishna movement, it's quite a big thing today, where when someone gets into Krishna consciousness, etc., they think that, oh, I don't need to bother about this problem which I have, it will get solved by itself. No, we need to take a clear intention of managing all of these material problems, right? So that's very, very important. This spiritual bypass, we can have a separate topic, a separate discussion on spiritual bypass. There's been a lot published in this regard, right? So now let's look at what are some of the other factors which we can try to address today, right? They include, things like uncertainty, feeling under pressure, working long hours, being out of work, money problems, housing problems, homelessness, drug abuse, misuse, and withdrawal. Those are stuff which we can actually address using Vedic knowledge. Okay. I'll just take a pause here to see if anyone has anything to add here. Ravi Prabhu, my expert brother.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I'm not an expert, but yes, stress and anxiety can result from all these factors. Sometimes it's a combination of factors, and one thing is that sometimes there are people who you want to get some assistance or support from, they may not be there, so you're left alone to deal with this combination of factors. Yes, you can ask the Lord for advice to calm your mind and get through things, but at the same time, you need to also be practical and really look for advice from people who can help you. It may not be your family members, it may not be your relatives, it may not even be your close friends, but it could be someone who you know who is a professional in dealing with these things, and maybe someone who notices that you are in some difficulty and you feel like opening up to that person. Maybe the Lord has sent this person to speak to you because the person has seen you down. There are some signs of depression that the person has noticed in you, and the person is asking, are you okay? So that has happened to me before as the person who is down, and also when I approached a person who looked down, I try to go all out to help the person as well, because I know what it was like to have been helped. So in that way, I find that either you're looking at yourself as an instrument of the Lord and trying to support people. At the same time, while looking at spiritual support, you really need to come out of your own shell or out of your own hole and be practical about finding ways to resolve your problem by really either looking inwardly, which is not going to help much, but looking out for support from others to get you out of this hole and find solutions to your anxiety.
Wonderful.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thanks for sharing that. So, in today's world, we can't be entirely anxiety-free, but we can make anxiety worthwhile by taking up meaningful responsibility. Think about it, right? We don't want merely to be anxiety-free. What it simply means is that we do not want such a comfortable life where we are not pushed, where we are not challenged, right? If everything was comfortable, then will we be living the principles of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is saying, you do your duties to the best of your ability, correct? And do not be attached to not doing your duty. Therefore, this anxiety can sometimes be good. This stress can sometimes be good. Otherwise, we get into this complacency. All right. Number two, how can responsibility make anxiety worthwhile? Because we become a little bit more results oriented. Yes, you may say results oriented. We have a goal we want to achieve. Could be, all right? And how can we replace worthless anxiety with worthwhile anxiety? Anyone would like to, try this? How can we replace that anxiety which is dragging us down into anxiety which is really worth it because it is uplifting us? Anyone would like to try this apart from Ravi Prabhu, Anuj Prabhu, Shalini Mataji? Yes. Anyone?
Can I share my experience?
Yes, sure.
I tried when I was very fed up with a lot of work and stress. I just sleep for 2 days, do nothing.
Okay.
Be totally anxiety free, don't care the world exists. On the third day, instead of feeling better, I was feeling even worse. So I decided to start breaking into smaller tasks and address those, and then it became so much better. And I started feeling so much elated. And then came some of the references with Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavad Puran. And the very first sloka of Bhagavad Puran says that Satchidananda, the one who is Tritapahara, we bow to him. And I kind of dwelled onto that. And I said, yeah, that is the only purpose of life. And then everything became kind of very happy.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing this, Prabhu. So essentially, running away from responsibility was not helping you.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita, that you do not be attached to not doing your duty. That's number one, very important. And what you realized was also that there are some things which you could control, and there are some things which are beyond your control. And therefore, how we can replace worthless anxiety with worthwhile anxiety is when we understand what is in my control. Can I break this complex project into smaller parts and living in an agile way? What are some elements which are beyond my control, which I'm just unnecessarily worrying about? Okay, that helps in a big way. And thanks for sharing, thanks for sharing your experience, because this is making it real, Ajit Prabhu. Okay, so replacing worthless anxiety with worthwhile anxiety involves, number one, in not running away from the responsibility, but understanding which parts of this complex element can I control and which parts are stuff which I cannot control. For example, sometimes we just worry so much about the weather changes, this. Ask ourselves, what are some elements I can control and what are some elements which are beyond my control? I can try to influence them, but that's about it. Okay. So moving forward, the Bhagavad Gita also explains that sometimes the cause of anxiety, not the first three parts, this is the other part which I spoke about, not the social, environmental factors, the psychological factors, or the biological factors. It's the other factors, right? Some parts, the fundamental causes of that type of anxiety is when there is misalignment between the physical world and our expectation, right? When there's a misalignment, this is what I expect the physical world to be, but this is what the reality is. There's a misalignment. And when there's a misalignment between what are my desires of my mind, what I want, but then my soul is actually desiring something else. So there's a dichotomy between what the soul wants, which is spiritual happiness, and what my mind is telling me that I want, which is flickering material happiness, that can also be a cause of anxiety. So for today's class, let's just remember three keywords. The three keywords for today's class are competition, expectations, and regulation. Let's start with the first word, competition. Competition can cause a lot of stress in our lives. Let's look at this. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, it's far better to discharge my responsibilities, even though not to the optimal manner. I've tried my very best, than to do someone else's duty perfectly. Distraction in the course of performing my own duty is better than engaging in another's duty, because to follow another's path is dangerous. When I first read this for many, many years, it just didn't make sense to me until the Acharyas explained this verse. Essentially, are we living someone else's life perfectly? Or are we living our authentic life, following our path? Right? That's very important. Each of us is born with a certain nature. Right? Each of us is born with a certain nature. This nature is due to the activities which we have engaged in our previous life. It is also due to the consciousness which was brought into this life, right, in the subtle body, right? What was stored in the mind, what was stored in the false ego, all of this was carried into this current body. So each of us come with a certain nature, coupled with the nurturing which we went through in this lifetime. That is actually providing us this equation of who we are, right? Our nature plus the nurturing, right? So if we try to pretend, and if someone is doing really well and we become envious, we need to ask ourselves that each of us actually have a different exam paper. No use copying the answers of the other person's exam paper, because my exam paper, my exam questions are completely different. The moment we can begin to understand this, it will be really liberating. I don't have to compare to my neighbors. I don't have to compare to my other siblings. I don't even have to compare to my other colleagues. I have my own exam, right? Because I'm made differently. My construct is completely different. It is more enjoyable to be ourselves than to be pretending to be someone else. All right. The duties which are born out of our nature can be easily performed with a stable mind, right? So for example, Ravi Prabhu, you are a solid academic, right? You are an inspector at the MOE, etc. Right? These are real solid Brahmanical qualities which are there, right? Which is essentially very knowledgeable and wanting to impart this knowledge to others. If I were to force you into a CEO's role, if I were to force you into a military commander's role, it may not be you living your optimal life.
That's correct, Prabhu. Yeah.
So the duties of others may seem attractive from a distance, and we may think of switching, but that is really a risky thing to do. If they conflict with our nature, they will create so much of disharmony in our mental mind, our senses, and our intellect. Right? It will be detrimental for our consciousness, and it will hinder our progress on the spiritual path. Therefore, Krishna emphasizes this point dramatically by saying that it is better to die in the faithful performance of duty, O Arjuna, than to be an unnatural position of running away from this responsibility. What we need to understand is that life is a continuous process. We cannot copy another person. We have to start off from where we are. Right? So Krishna is finally once again saying that, Arjuna, don't try doing another person's work. Your work is a Kshatriya. You fight the war. Don't run away into the forests, into the Himalayas, etc., because that is not your nature. Don't compare yourself to the yogi who is doing all of this. Arjuna, don't try to do another's responsibility. Don't try to copy the other person. Just be yourself. Important for us to recognize, who am I? What am I? What are my shortfalls? Accept them, right? And work on our strengths, right? Therefore, we do our dharma according to our present situation, keeping the focus on growth and keep growing. Our Swadharma and our Sanatan Dharma, that is the secret of life. Okay? And Einstein also said this, comparing ourselves is like a, not Einstein, but we hear this commonly, right? Comparing ourselves is like, is a race we can never win. So sometimes even comparing, can trigger unrealistic expectations of ourselves that can lead to depression. Comparing to the optimal can also cause a lot of anxiety. So be mindful. It's no longer about the past, as what Shalini Mataji has said. It's about what I can do right now to grow. Right? So we know of this SWOT analysis. What's my strength? Right? What's my weakness? What are the opportunities for me to grow? And what are the threats which I'm causing to myself? What is in my control? And then you work on that. And then this is what Einstein supposedly said. Everyone is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. Actually, it's easier said than done. Especially when we look at our children, we expect so much out of our children, right? But sometimes when we begin to ask ourselves that maybe this child is, has got this strength in another arena, what can we do to somehow channel the energy further and further into this arena? So think about this. Because at the end of the day, what is everyone searching for? Happiness, right? It could be fleeting material happiness, or it could be spiritual happiness once we have reached a certain stage. Any realization, reflection, Deepa Mataji? Is Lalita Mataji here, another teacher?
Prabhu, is it okay if I say something?
Sure.
If we can go back to the Bhagavad Gita 335 slide that we showed. So, of course, Krishna is asking Arjun to follow his Swadharma. And then there's these two words, right? In line 3, destruction in the course of performing one's duty. And then the last word, dangerous.
Yeah.
So one might think when they look at this shloka, that destruction and dangerous, destruction, you already have, completely gone. You have died. And then there's an interesting word, to follow another's path is dangerous. So, of course, the realization, when you read the purports and all the destruction here, is better to die, like what you mentioned, in accordance to one's personal duty following. But if you do not follow your own path, you follow other people's path, you're deviating away from your spiritual path, which is actually the real danger. So I find that it's very interesting that destruction and dangers were used here, but destruction is in the course of the material plane, where you're doing your duty and you do your best you can, you fail the best that you can. And whatever it is, whether you pass or fail or whatever, as long as you follow your duty, that's fine. But if you do not, then you're actually not doing your karma yoga, and you're actually not doing your swadharma, and you're also now moving away from a path of spiritual liberation, which
Wonderful.
is dangerous. Yeah. So that was interesting to me. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Thanks for, dissecting this further. I think your realization is making a lot of sense to me. Sincerely, that's the right way to look at it. Dangerous because it is not just in your material capacity, but it's also taking you away from your Sanatan Dharma and the Swadharma as a combination. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thanks for sharing your realization. Okay, so we saw all of this, yeah. So for example, I mean, look at this, amazing scenery over here at the Caribbean. There was this boatman who was just resting under a nice palm tree, right? And there came a rich industrialist, and he told this boatman, can you take me to the other island? And the boatman said, yes, that's what I'm here for, right? I've rested enough and I can actually bring you over. So the boatman started rowing him to the other side, to the next river, to the next island. And the industrialist said that, how long have you been rowing? He said, oh, I started at the age of 18. I'm 45 right now. Right? He said, you must have collected a little bit of money. Why don't you just buy one more boat? Buy another one more boat. And then the boatman said, yeah, but what do I do with this? He said that, oh, once you have one more boat, then, you will be able to have more profits. And then the boatman said, then what do I do? He said, then with that profit, right, you can hire more people, you can buy 4 more boats. The boatman said, yes. And then what do I do? He says, with these 4 boats, you can actually increase to 16 boats. And then what do I do? He says, then, instead of just shuttling between one island to another, you can take over the entire Caribbean. And then what do I do? Then you can list your company. You can make a big killing. And then what do I do? And then with all of this money, you can retire early. And then you can come to the Caribbean and just relax. And that's the point when the boatman asked him, isn't that what I'm already doing right now? Right? So the boatman has his own Swadharma, Sanatan Dharma, all right? And the industrialist has already his own Swadharma and maybe Sanatan Dharma. The industrialist is trying to inspire him, but the boatman is very clear that I'm already achieving so much of liberation and bliss in this. Not complacency, yeah? I'm already happy with this. Why do I need to go through the entire episodes? All right. And then finally realize that my final goal is to just be happy under the palm tree in a Caribbean. Okay. So in the pursuits of many dreams, we forget to be happy. Right? So, we can have a discussion on this, but I think many of us are already fully aware that, we compare ourselves to others, and, it's just very, very toxic. It can be debilitating, and then it's also disconnecting us from the reality. Because all of us are unique. Each of us have a different exam paper. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind. The mind, all right, cannot degrade us. The mind is the best of friends and can be the worst of enemy at the same time. Bhagavad Gita explains this, right? So coming back to Anuj Prabhu's point in the beginning, Anuj Prabhu also explained, as an extension to this particular verse, is that when we are so attached to the material, when we become so lusty to wanting to achieve this material gain, if we don't get it, we will become angry. Our entire mind will become bewildered, right? We may become mad, etc. So that is actually the entire process of anxiety. Okay. Now let's take a deeper look.
I have one question,
Yes,
Prabhuji, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No problems.
Yeah, sorry, Prabhuji. For our earlier discussion where where we discussed a lot about doing, doing karma as per our nature and what Lord Krishna also told in the Bhagavad Gita. I was just thinking, as you were also, telling, and also, like Ravi Prabhu was also telling. So I was just thinking about, this discussion. So a thought came in my mind that, yes, we do follow, we do karma as per our nature. And as you said, we bring our nature as a sum total of our karmas from all our previous lives, and plus we have the nurturing of this life. So if we are probably born in a Brahmana family, and so which means that our past karmas were linked, like as per Brahmana work, as per the work of a Brahmana. But if the current life's nurturing is such that we don't follow we don't follow that nature of work as a Brahmana, and we try to enter the corporate world or try to do business. So there are examples where children of Brahmana families have left Brahmana work, and they do other work like in the corporates or probably a business. So in that case, it's not a clear division of what your nature is because of your current nurturing. As you said, there are two components in this: our nature plus our nurturing in the current life. Our nature, which we bring from our past life, and the nurturing in the current life. So if these two are not the same, or if, for instance, one changes their profession, so changing profession would mean that he doesn't accept where he's born or his past nature, but his current nurturing is so strong that he changes his varnas, like so-called varna, and he does what he feels is okay today. So this is something which is a little confusing for me, that if you want to change profession from probably being a Brahmana to a Kshatriya or to a Vaishya, how does one know what his true nature is? Is it that you should really ask yourself this question, that what what you really what really compel is of your interest? Is it that, Prabhuji?
Okay, so this is something which we have discussed in our class. First and foremost, we need to remember that this can change. All right. So, for example, there are exalted personalities like Vishwamitra. I think Vishwamitra was a Kshatriya, then he became a Brahmana.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes. Right. So this can evolve with time. That's number one. A lot of what we do today is because of conditioning, right? For example, in an Indian family, if we are not a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer, we are nobody. This is how, the mindset of Indian parents are. If you're not a doctor, you're not an engineer, or a lawyer, then, it's, what are you doing? So that's the conditioning where we are actually forced into a certain career. But is that my natural instinct? What can I perform optimally in a certain role? It may not be, because you are desiring something. This is like, authentically, this is who I am, but I'm asked to do an engineer's work, right? I'm forced to do something which I'm not naturally inclined to. So we are fortunate because there are two ways of actually understanding what our nature is. there are lots of assessments available today, like DISC, DISC, right? Strength Finder, etc., where you can actually find out how this is, where your strengths are, right? Another one is, working with a coach who understands you, working with a coach who knows you really well, that can also help you. Previously, families used to look at astrological charts, right? What was the astrological, how were the planets and all arranged, etc. When a child was born, they were able to then, make some assumptions. So it's not going to be easy, but naturally what comes to you, that's really important. Sometimes we can see in our own children, when they are forced into a science curriculum, right, they struggle. Right? I'm seeing in my own children, my older daughter, she was very clear that don't force me to become a doctor or someone in science because I want political science. I love this. My younger daughter was doing, physics, chemistry, etc. She was good at it, but when she went into a business kind of studies, she really did very, very well, right? So yeah, there are ways of actually doing this, Prabhu. Coaching helps in a big way. These assessment centers, they can also help us in a big way. Yeah, it's just that it's the conditioning which we go through in our lives. Okay. Any questions? Any more?
Yeah, can I ask one question? Sorry, I mean, I've been interrupting a few times, but this is a
not
very
at all,
important
not at all.
question.
And I may not, just a minute, Ajit Prabhu, I may not have the most optimal answers for all of you. I'm also learning. So, any one of you who feel that we can see something from a different perspective, please, just
one question. Yeah. Just one question, Prabhuji, is that why is there a tendency among us to categorize ourselves into something? In our Indian case, for example, into the varnas, whether am I a Brahmin or a Kshatriya or a Vaishya or a Shudra. For example, our community, what I'm told from birth, and it is documented, belongs to both Brahmana and Kshatriya Varna. And that kind of opened up my mind is why can't I be a Vaishya and Shudra as well, So but give particular situation, particular time as it demands, as my mind tells me, if I act according to those varnas, because those varnas are defining the responsibilities and the work that is being done by them, I feel happy. Why don't I choose that path instead of saying that, oh, I am a Brahmin, I cannot do Vaishya job or a Shudra job? So that is the question that for true happiness, my experience is I just don't worry about that. And if I go to a restaurant in India, if you wipe your table after you are done, people look down upon you. But I don't think it that way. I mean, it's just making the job easier for the waiter who is already so overburdened. And why should people look down upon me? So I can be a Shudra in that case. And I feel very happy that at least the place has been cleaned up. And this is how I feel that we can even clean up our mind by coming out of these kind of categorization. I'm not saying it is bad. I mean, our brain is limited channels. So to understand, we need to have categories. But being stuck to the categories and complying, so I feel that the freedom will come only when we are non-compliant, but in a responsible way. Would you want to say something on this? Am I thinking wrongly?
No. It's the right framework, the right mindset. Prabhu, you are an engineer by profession, right? Your son is a doctor, your daughter is a doctor. How can it be? You are an engineer, right? You are using your hands, you are in the oil and gas. So will your children not also automatically become engineers? Where did it go wrong? How come the two of them became doctors? That shows you that the way the caste system or the Varna system has been interpreted is totally wrong. In the Bhagavad Gita classes, right? Sadly, you missed the entire series, Prabhuji. Lord Krishna explains that everyone has his own or her own nature, right? Based on that person's nature, this is how society is therefore set up. This nature can also change with time. But it doesn't mean that if my nature is I'm a Pandit, I'm a Brahmin, I have this natural inclination of becoming a scholar in the scriptures, in grammar, etc. That does not mean that my children will also become. And therefore, this disciplic hierarchy or this disciplic pass down of a profession is totally wrong. This is where it went corrupted. This was never the intention of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everyone has his own exam paper. Everyone has his own inclination. A Brahmin son can be a Kshatriya. A Brahmin son can also be a merchant. A Brahmin son can also be a craftsman. The guru, when the child goes into a guru school, right? Gurukul, the guru is able to examine the nature of the child, and therefore they will be put into a certain pathway for development. All right. That is why in a Gurukul there will be teaching of craftsmanship. There will be teaching of military warfare, etc. So the guru at that point is able to know what is the nature of the individual. All right. And therefore, the son of a Brahmin can become a Kshatriya. That is what it was intended. But if I'm a Brahmin in the 17th century, the 16th century, then I will not want to teach the scriptures to another person's child. I will be only wanting to teach this naturally to my own children. And that is how it became like a disciplic succession. All right? Like a Brahmin, I'm a born Brahmin, my children are born Brahmins, etc. This whole concept is not what Lord Sri Krishna had proposed in the Bhagavad Gita or had explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay? In fact, there was no such word as the caste system. This was introduced by the Portuguese. There was no such thing as a caste system. Right? And that's the reason why luminaries like Guru Nanak actually came to stop this wrong practice, because that was never the intention. Okay, Prabhuji, Ajit Prabhu?
Yeah, very well. I mean, it clarified my mind a lot, and it kind of gels with what I have been kind of thinking about the misconceptions of the categorization into Brahmin, Kshatriya. It becomes sometimes easier to explain to other friends when they start talking about our religion without having any knowledge about our religion. And it gets very frustrating to tell them that we are not caste-based society. We are a society based on Varna, based on like corporate disciplines where we have different departments to. You can't put an accountant to be doing the engineer's job and engineer doing the accountant job. So it's the same practice followed in our religion. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji. Really, thanks.
Yeah. So that is how the Supreme Personality of Godhead and organized society. There will be the teachers, right? Who
I would
understands?
like to add one thing, Prabhuji.
Yes.
I was listening to one of the lectures, and where they say when Sri Krishna was talking on the battlefield, he says that everyone is a warrior, where the Brahmanas are fighting ignorance.
Yeah.
And he said that a warrior is fighting for safety. You know, they are fighting against at the battlefield. Then he says the Vaishnavas are fighting for insufficiency. They are providers. They look for, providing. And the same way Shudras are fighting for unhygiene or, dirt and unhealthy conditions. So everyone is fighting against something and doing better for the society. So this was like really very nice, which catch my attention.
Very nice. Thanks for sharing. Really nice. Right. So then Krishna says there is no difference between the teachers, the warriors, the merchants, and the craftsmen. There is no difference. And Krishna went on to explain even further in the Bhagavad Gita that one with an equipoised mindset will actually see the Sudra, the dog eater, the elephant, the dog, and the saint with the same mindset. Okay, because he sees that Bhagwan Ji is there in every living entity. Right? So you see, it's sad because our scriptures have all been misinterpreted by, people who wanted to degrade Sanatana Dharma. So the responsibility is on us to actually understand our scriptures well and thereby being empowered to explain this to others. I was telling you that there's this nice, very nice Mataji. She's like 21 years old from the Netherlands. She came to Singapore to study at ESSEC Business School. She completed her master's, and she has been coming for our Kirtan program. And she says, I'm really interested, but at the same time, I've got 101 doubts. She sat down with me. I had a nice one-on-one coaching session with her. The first thing she asked me is, what's all this caste system about? Why are we seeing every human differently? And then I had to explain there's no such thing in the scriptures as the caste system. It's a varnashrama system, right? And what it was intended to and how it became corrupted to the benefit of others. So we just need to keep on educating people. There are two more verses which are very important, but I think it's important for us to get into our Bhagavatam study. So I will stop this part of the presentation. Is it okay? Ken?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you.
Yes, sure.
Okay, so I've prepared a few more slides which looks at two more verses which are quite important. And now let's look at what Bhagavatam is saying, right? So Canto number 3, chapter number 8. Brahmaji is now reintroduced. Right? Brahmaji has completed one day of his life, and now he's getting into the second day of the life. The first day is completed, the first night is completed, and now Brahmaji is getting into the second day. But before that, let's look at the manifestation of Brahma from Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. Anyone would like to explain the three personalities? Karunadakshayi Vishnu, Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, and Chirodakshayi Vishnu. Anyone? If you don't, then I will ask you, I'll do a cold calling. Lalita Mataji, would you like to try?
Okay. Garbhodakshayi Vishnu was okay. One of them actually created the universe, and one of them was he entered into this. He was the Paramatma. He entered into the soul of all the bodies that Brahma created.
Okay.
And the third one, I cannot recall. Sorry.
Okay, doesn't matter. Thank you very much, Malji. You got 2 correct, 2 out of 3. So you passed. Actually, you got all 3 correct, but you went a bit too fast in the beginning. All right. So you have Mahavishnu, right? Or Karuna Dakshayi Vishnu on the causal ocean. He is breathing in and out, and emanating from his pores are millions of universes. Within each universe, the same Karuna Dakshayi Vishnu expands and manifests as a Garbho Dakshayi Vishnu within each universe. Emanating from his navel is then the lotus flower where Brahmaji sits. This Garbho Dakshayi Vishnu first expands into Chiro Dakshayi Vishnu in Brahmaji's heart. And the Chiro Dakshayi Vishnu expands further into every atom, into every living entity which is created. Okay. But now, so now you know Karuna Dakshayi Vishnu, Garbho Dakshayi Vishnu, and Chiro Dakshayi Vishnu. After the first night of Brahmaji, where he's now waking up to the next dawn, okay, there was a partial dissolution after the first day of Brahma. Then comes the first night of Brahma. In the first night of Brahma, all the living entity who have not gone back to the spiritual world, what happens is they go back into the body of Garbho Dakshayi Vishnu. Okay? Together, they also bring what is in their mindset, right? The mental, the imprints in their mind, they are bringing it together. Their karma, they are bringing it together. All right. So all of these living entities with their karma, with their mindset, with all their nature are going back into Garbho Dakshayi Vishnu's body. All right. And then when it's time, they will appear again. They will appear again through his navel. Okay. So that's the deep science. Very confusing, but as you read further and further, it's going to be easy. So in the last chapter, Vidura placed a number of inquiries to Maitreya Muni on what's the Lord's relationship with his material creation. So remember, Maitreya Muni together with Uddhav had heard from Krishna a lot about creation, etc. Maitreya Muni had also learned the entire Bhagavatam from the disciplic succession. And now Vidura is asking him about his experience with Krishna, what he had heard from Krishna. At the same time, Maitreya Muni is also explaining the Bhagavatam to Vidura. Okay, you see, this is becoming more nested conversations. Okay, Maitreya Muni is explaining about what Krishna had told him and Uddhava, and Maitreya Muni is also explaining Bhagavatam, which he had learned from his Guru Maharaj. All okay with me?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, Prabhuji.
All right. So before beginning to reply to Vidura, Maitreya first glorifies Vidura. Right? He says, "Oh Vidura, you are coming from this dynasty where they are all pure devotees." All right, pure devotees like Vidura. What do? They expand the glories of the Supreme Lord everywhere. That is their intention. Why do they do that? Why do they expand the glories of the Supreme Lord everywhere? Anuj Prabhu, why do they do that?
That's their natural instinct. They are pure devotees of
Okay, that's
the
the
Lord. So they
natural
always remember the
instincts.
Lord.
Yes.
Their activities are centered around the Lord. So whatever
More
they do,
importantly, It's because they have compassion
want to
for
give.
everyone.
Yeah.
They have compassion for every living entity which is suffering in this material world. With this knowledge, with this jnana, they hope that it brings about a mindset shift in all the material entities, in all the living entities, I mean. And therefore, these living entities can there start living devotional service. And by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they leave this material world and go back to the spiritual world. That is the prime reason why pure devotees are here. Okay? It's because of their compassion for us. And they are actually able to expand, because spiritual science is Ananda Buddhi Vardhanam. It becomes fresher and more tastier as you keep on expanding it further and further and further. Sheshnath, all right, the Lord is lying down on Sheshnath. Sheshnath has thousands of heads, all right, the serpent with thousands of heads. These thousands of heads can keep on glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The activities, the leelas, the personality of this Lord can just go on and on and on and on, lifetime after lifetime, and they cannot stop with their 1,000 heads. Okay. So Prabhupada glorifies hearing the Bhagavatam. The sage Maitreya proposed to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam because it was especially compiled and it comes in the disciplic succession. Why? For the solution of all problems of human society. Only one who is fortunate can have the opportunity to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of devotees. So then Maitreya relates his own history of how he heard the Srimad Bhagavatam. He says that he heard the Bhagavatam from Parasara Muni. All right. Parasara Muni then heard it from his guru, Sankhyayana Muni. All right. And Sankhyayana Muni heard it from one of the 4 Kumaras, the Sanat Kumara, and who had in turn heard it from Ananta Shesha or Lord Sankarshan. Right? With the hundreds and thousands of heads, he was speaking about this to the 4 Kumaras. The 4 Kumaras were, keen to hear more about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They went up to see Vishnu. They smelled the tulsi on Lord Vishnu's foot and they realized that, wow, the Lord is just not the Brahman Jyoti, but he is a person himself. He is Bhagwan himself, and therefore let us try to learn as much as we can. And therefore they approached the Ananta Deva or Lord Sankarshan, and this is how they heard. And therefore this whole disciplic succession actually started with the 4 Kumaras. Okay. So now Maitreya Muni begins to explain further. He then continues the description of creation from where he had left at the end of chapter 6. Now we are in chapter number 8. So the universe is partially destroyed after each day of Brahma, as I explained earlier on, and hence the current description of creation after the partial dissolution, and is therefore somewhat different from the version of creation previously described. Previously described, remember, Brahmaji has become 100-year-old, and therefore the entire material creation is devastated. Everything goes back into the Lord's body. Nothing is left. But this one is just a partial dissolution. So Garbhodakshai Vishnu appeared as if he was asleep. He was resting alone on Ananta Shesha in the waters, which had previously been devastated. And at that time, both the material energy and the living entities were wound out within him. Okay, so in the Bhagavatam, it's explained that the fruitive workers are described as mudas or foolish. Such foolish living entities are very enthusiastic to work for some temporary benefit within perpetual bondage. They are always tied up. one thinks himself very clever throughout his life if he's able to leave behind him a great asset of wealth for his children. And to achieve the temporary benefit, he takes the risk of all sinful activities without knowledge that such activities will keep him forever bound by the shackles of material bondage. The reason why Prabhupada explained this in the purport is because he wants us to understand that it's not that we will, at the end of this life, we all go back to the spiritual world. No, it will all depend on how we have orchestrated our life. We will come back again and again and again. But at the end of Brahma's day, it doesn't mean we will go back to the spiritual world. No, we will just temporarily get back into the body of Garbhodakshai Vishnu when it's time. All right. This one day is 1,000 yuga cycles. And therefore, the Lord is telling us you can come back again and again and again and again into this material world or into one of the 14 planetary systems. And there is just one day of Brahma. At the end of one day, there comes a one night of Brahma. Everybody goes into the Lord's body again. You see, and therefore, Prabhupada and his Guru Maharaj are telling us that how many lifetimes we have given to Maya. And Prabhupada is telling us, can we not just give one life to Krishna? So after lying down inside Garbhodakshai Vishnu's abdomen for 1,000 yuga cycle, the living entities under the influence of time, they become prepared to emerge. And again, they begin fruitively motivated action. Okay. A subtle form containing all the living entities' karma suddenly pierce Garbhodakshai Vishnu's abdomen, and by his spiritual will, the energy took in the form of a lotus stem and gradually grew into a bud. Now you can see Brahmaji is coming out again after his night of sleeping. The lotus represents the Virat Roop. Remember, we explained earlier on that this lotus stem is where these 14 planetary systems are. The lowest planetary system can be represented by the Lord's lotus feet. And the highest planetary system, Satya Loka, can be represented by the Lord's crown and head. And therefore, the entire 14 planetary system, which is, traversing, which is the entire lotus stem, that is the Lord's material form. Spiritual form, but can be conceived as a form. So some yogis, they just pray to the Lord's form, which is encompassing the entire 14 planetary system. Okay, but as devotees, as Vaishnava, we just want to pray on Shyam Sundar. The Lords representing the Virat Rupa has been amalgamated in the Lord at the time. The lotus representing the Virat Rupa had been amalgamated in the Lord at the time of the previous universal dissolution. And as it grows, it illuminated everything and dried up the vast ocean of devastation. The Lord then expanded himself as Chirodakshai Vishnu, the super soul of all living entities, and he entered into the lotus on which Lord Brahma took birth. Okay, so remember, from the Karunadakshai Vishnu, the Lord expanded into Chirodakshai Vishnu, and that's the super soul went into the lotus bud, into Lord Brahma, and then it became the expansion of Chirodakshai Vishnu in every living entity. Brahmaji is bewildered, sitting on the hall of lotus. Brahma, who possessed the desire to create, but he did not have the ability, could neither understand the surroundings, the lotus on which he was sitting, nor on himself. And therefore, what did he do? He entered the water through the stem and tried to discover his source. As he came closer and closer to Karunadakshai, to Garbhodakshai Vishnu, he saw the chakra of the Lord, okay, which is representing time is finishing, time is finishing. All right, and Brahmaji got nervous and he became fearful and he went back again to the top. So what is this explaining is that by our own endeavor, we cannot understand the mystery of the Lord. Okay, Brahmaji was already created. He went down the stem. He went through the entire 14 planetary system. He reached Ananta Shesha. He saw Garbhodakshai Vishnu, the arm with the chakra. He got nervous and he went back again. That just shows that if Brahmaji could not understand the mystery of creation and the Lord, who are we to understand the Lord? But we can simply understand the Lord if the Lord provides this mercy to us. No one, therefore, can know the mystery of creation and the cosmic manifestation by mentally speculating. The human being is so limited in his capacity that without the help of the Supreme, he can hardly understand the mystery of the will of the Lord in terms of creation, continuance, and destruction. Okay. So now, Brahmaji went down, mission failed, he went up. Trying again to understand, but by a different method. What did Brahmaji do? He sat with focused intelligence and meditated on the Supreme Lord. Okay. What was Brahmaji doing? Brahmaji was now becoming a receptacle to receive the mercy of the Lord. His meditation ultimately brought him success because he renounced his own attempt to understand and instead he surrendered himself in devotional service. Oh Lord, I can't understand you. I do not know what's my role. I do not know what's my swadharma. I do not know what's even my nature. Let me just get into devotional service to you. And if you so desire, all of this will be revealed to me. By dint of one's personal endeavor, one may go nearer to the Lord, but without the Lord's mercy, one cannot reach the ultimate point. Such understanding of the Lord is possible only by devotional service, as is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay? Right. Time check, please. What's the time, Prabhu? Okay, 4 more minutes. Let's just do one more slide. And this is Brahma's meditation. To cease from personal sense endeavor and to concentrate on the supreme cause is a sign of self-surrender. And when self-surrender is present, there is a sure sign of devotional service. Because coming back to Shalini Mataji's point, you realize you are just one small part of the entire equation. You are not the doer. The Lord has to provide that mercy to you. All right. Each and every living entity needs to engage in devotional service to the Lord if he wishes to understand the ultimate cause of his existence. One has to wait for the mercy of the Lord before one can either render service unto him or know him as he is. Okay. So this is a complex topic, but you know, it's interesting, right? Shalini Mataji, what do you think?
Yes, Prabhuji, I find it really motivating that when Brahmaji can get bewildered, who are we? So yeah,
Very nice. Very
my
nice.
take is that we should keep on, reading the book again and again. And if we are ignorant, it's okay.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you, Mataji. Okay, any realizations? Ajit Prabhu, thank you very much for expressing your doubt. I think that's so important. Yeah, I just saw a chat from Ravi Prabhu. Give me a minute. Okay, Sonia, yes. Yes, Mataji, I like Deepa Mataji's sharing over here. When one sees friends or relatives who are really doing well in life, the heart says, why can't we have such a life? But her realization is we are not aware to achieve this, what all of them they have done in their past and in their present life, and what kind of sacrifices and pain they have done through this. That's an amazing realization, Deepa Mataji. We do not know, right? We are just seeing this small little part of the symphony. What they must have done, how much of charity they must have given, how much they must have endeavored, right? I like that point. I'm going to copy this and paste it on my journal. Okay, let me see. Sonia Mataji says, plan for the week, but put yourself to task up to bedtime only. It prevents anxiety. That's nice. Okay, Milan, I read that Anant Nag has 5 heads, whereas you explain. So Bhagavatam explains that Anant Shesh has got thousands of heads, right? In the pictures, yes, that's what Ravinder Prabhu says. 5 heads, but more commonly it's thousands of heads. Very nice. Okay, very good. Any other realization before we move on? Okay, thank you very much. So next Sunday, there will not be a class. I will send you some lectures you can watch, and then we will reconvene after 2 weeks. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, could I have today's slides? I wanted to actually share these with, like, if okay with you, like with some of my colleagues who are, who are not from Sanatan Dharma, but I think it's very important if
Oh, sure.
if it's okay with you.
Yeah, I can share this, no problem. I
Thank
will also
you.
include the other 2 verses, okay?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thanks.
Yes, Malti Mataji.
Hare
Yes.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
So, Prabhuji,
Hare
whatever
Krishna Prabhuji.
was Prabhuji, we
Hare
continue
Krishna.
2 slides in next class.
Shalini Maji, can you repeat?
Yeah, we made the 2 slides. I request you to we start with our next class with these 2 slides, what we were doing earlier. We complete that.
Oh, yeah. Certainly. I will complete that full thing. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Not at all. Actually, I've given this class last week in NTU. I took your advice, Shalini Mataji. Don't straight away drive into Bhagavatam. Do something which is, a little bit.
Yeah, it is very good, Prabhuji, because as you said, sometimes some topics are very dry. But
Yeah.
when we correlate them with today's word, it ignites our curiosity
Yes.
and interest as well.
Yeah. I think the most important point is that, this is wisdom that breathes.
Correct.
Oh,
And
it's
it's
breathing.
relevant also in today's world. Because
Yeah.
sometimes we feel, oh, it is so old. How come, I'm saying like what I used to think before. So I believe many people think that way. So yeah, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Sorry, something went wrong with my unmuting. Just wanted to say it was very enlightening. It clarified a lot of doubts. And one of the points I also realized that comparing with others is useless, but even comparing with hypothetical ourselves is also useless, because we create an image of ourselves and then we keep saying it could have been, it would have been, if I had been a doctorate or this or that, I could have been this and that. But that comparison also needs to be stopped.
Wonderful. Very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
Jai.
Thank you,
Srila
Prabhuji.
Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Jai.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, Prabhuji.
Oh, by the way, there is a Rath Yatra today, this afternoon. I don't go because we are from a, we are not. So basically, that mandir, they do not believe in the Guru Parampara. And they blaspheme our gurus, and therefore I don't go for that Rath Yatra. But all of you are free to go, and pull Jagannath's Rath. But you will not see me there. You will not see my wife there, because the psychology, the philosophy is a bit different. Yeah? But Jagannath is Jagannath. Right? So if you are free, you want to go, you can go. But philosophy wise is different, and therefore, in case you must be wondering why Pradeep Prabhu doesn't say anything about the Rath Yatra this evening, it's it's sad that philosophy wise it's a little bit different. But I always I see it this way, that Krishna, from the spiritual world, he's looking at two kids fighting unnecessarily. It's Krishna's looking from the top, and then he's saying, what is this? Kids are fighting over this small little thing, Okay, Hare Krishna. See you all.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Thank you.
Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.